So this is a tragic day. I'm I'm just appalled. I'm upset and greatly disturbed by what's happened today. As you all know already, Charlie Kirk's been shot. I've seen a couple different videos of it, and it does not look good, although people in the know are saying that he has a pulse. Charlie Kirk does. But I'm going to tell you folks, it looks really bad. What does this say about where we are right now? You see, I don't see this kind of broad political violence coming from any direction except to attack those who are on the right. We've had many trans shootings that were clearly targeted at Christian schools. We've had 2 attempts on Donald Trump's life. And the list goes on and on of shooters who are really of a leftward political way of thinking, doing mass shootings. And yeah, I know it's not exclusively that, but we go all the way back to the Bernie Sanders supporter that shot Republican congressmen in Northern Virginia when they were practicing for the congressional baseball game, that almost killed Steve Scalise, who I am sure is feeling this right now in a big way. I don't want to sugarcoat this. Listen, politics should be partisan. That's the whole purpose. We don't need bipartisan politics. People have different perspectives and viewpoints, and they have a philosophy that they're working from. So any calls for bipartisanship, I think, are absurd. What we do need to have calls for is general moral principle. In other words, we need to really evaluate what it is that is required of human beings in public discourse. I have no sympathy for people who feel triggered by things. If you are triggered, it's like I told my boys when they were growing up, Dad, he's being so annoying. I said, no, he's not. I said, you're annoyed. That's your problem. That's the fundamental foundation of where this problem is, although on a much more tragic and evil scale than mere annoyances that pop up. See, politics will always have annoyances. There's no getting away from that. The problem comes when people who are annoyed demand action from the person they're offended by. But it gets even worse than that. We are on the back end of about 15 years, really all the way back to somewhere in the middle of the Obama administration, of Democrat politicians working hard to twist a system to benefit them politically. Along the way, you gather up people like the Maxine Waters of the world and some other Democrats who call for some sort of violence or action to be taken against their political opponents. Maxine Waters was literally called and has consistently called for Trump supporters to be castigated in public, to be made to feel shame of a confrontational sort. It's one thing to be shamed because you've done wrong. It's another thing to purposely put someone in shame because of their political opinion. You go beyond that. Look at what AOC and Jasmine Crockett and the squad, look what they do. The foul language, the screaming and yelling. And yeah, I know a lot of people scream on all sides of the aisle. But then let's go into the Biden administration and the attempt to censor political opponents, to utilize the media to shut down political opposition, to shut down social media outlets. There is a mind virus on the left that is very dangerous. And I think we need to call out this shooting for what it is, because we already know the guy's a registered Democrat. Apparently his name is Michael Mallinson is the suspect, a registered Democrat in Utah. Now, it's one thing to go and scream and yell at Charlie Kirk, and he was always able to handle that. But when you're going to pull out a weapon and shoot someone, listen, the Democrat Party is not an American party, and I'm going to call that out for what it is. They're not an American party. They're a socialist party that is seeking to destroy political opponents. This is what we see in California. They totally shut down Republican opposition at the ballot box even. And when a party or a group of people have it in their minds to take away opportunity from their political opponents by means of government or any other means, that is I was about to say violent, but that is an absurd institution. And when they act in that absurdity, it can become violent. And that's what we're seeing here. No doubt, there are people on the conservative end of things who get way out of hand. But you just don't see this kind of violence coming against Democrats. In rare circumstances. I do remember Representative Gabbards getting shot in Arizona. So yeah, some things can happen. I'm not even sure that was a conservative. I think it was a Democrat, but I don't know. I can say this though: we've heard MSNBC, 2 different videos I've seen calling Charlie Kirk divisive and trying to put this on him. We see violence in the streets in Democrat cities constantly. We see regularly Donald Trump and his supporters being called fascists, Nazis, consistently and persistently. And when you do that over time, you're going to get a response. I've said for a long period of time, 6,000 years of recorded human history proves the radical corruption of mankind. Nobody is without guilt. All human beings are guilty before God for sin. But there are certain times in the life of politics in certain nations where at some point there can come a breaking point, where people have pushed the envelope so far to oppose others politically that it spills over into violence. It's happened throughout human history. This is nothing new. But it is high time we recognize that it is now necessary to assert constitutional boundaries on government again, so that the disputes we have are highly limited and don't have the tendency to get to this point. Government is so big, so broad in its scope, and the necessity to draw it back in so we don't get into situations like we see in third world countries where socialist efforts lead to violence. Constitutionalism and the American ideal is founded on the Judeo-Christian ethic that mankind is accountable directly to God for his actions, and that we leave decisions to individuals before God. And we don't make people accountable to the government. Big government always leads to some sort of violence. And we need to change our perspective on how we even do things in this system. This is a serious incident that should never have happened. It should be so rare that no one can quite put their fingers around the origins of it. But we've got a situation now where this kind of violence is starting to happen more and more after 2 attempts on Trump's life and now this attempt on Charlie Kirk's life. We got to recognize, get government out of your lives, hold people accountable for their actions, and really repent and turn back to a godly framework in our culture. We need the church to change and to repent and stop playing political games. We need to assert a constitutional order one more time in this country so we can have a chance of getting back to our foundations, which is limited government and people responsible for their own actions. And in this case, we need to call out the Democrat Party for encouraging the kind of disgust and hatred for political opponents that they will twist the law, twist our institutions to get their way. That kind of aggressive effort in and of itself is bad, but it does help encourage things like what happened today. Please pray for Charlie Kirk, pray for his family, and pray for this country.